good life. Alright, let's go and live the good life, the good life.
Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Joe Ellis. I'm a commercial wedding and portrait photographer in Dallas, Texas. And tonight I want to talk about making a live composite image with your Olympus camera of the 4th of July, a picture I love to make every year of my family. I think it's incredible, and it's one of the best ways to use this feature that I've ever seen. So let's go through the steps of live composite and talk about how you guys can get this picture of your family really easily with your Olympus camera this 4th of July. So normally on the 4th, we're out at a park and we're watching a giant fireworks display. I don't have that tonight. So I'm going to use a couple of sparklers to kind of simulate fireworks, but the process will be exactly the same. And what we're trying to get here is a perfectly lit photo of my kids and still have fireworks going off in the background of the photo. And I think it's a rather remarkable picture to make because it's actually kind of techie and difficult, but live composite makes it a lot easier. So you find live composite on your Olympus camera, on your EM1 Mark II or your EM5 Mark II by rolling the shutter speed down lower than 60 seconds until you see live comp. If you have an EM10 Mark III, it's in the AP settings. All the cameras is basically the exact same thing. And so here's the process, here's the steps. The first step is that you get the camera out, put the camera in manual exposure at 1 second at f4. Let's just go with ISO 400. And you will take a picture of your kids and make sure that it's turning out the way you want it to, okay? Then you roll the camera into live composite and go ahead and hit the menu button once. When you hit the menu button, you'll see the options for live composite. And at that moment, you want to go ahead and choose the shutter speed that you want to use for this live composite. So you could choose 1 second, 2 seconds, 4 seconds, whatever you want it to be. Let's just go with the 1 second for our purposes here. Now, you're going to go ahead and leave it there, and then you're going to go to the shutter, and you're going to trip the shutter the first time. And that's going to take your background exposure, which in most cases at the 4th of July, well after dark, there's going to be very little ambient light wherever you are. In the second exposure, the flash will go off once. That will illuminate your kids. And then the camera stays on and it keeps recording light for as long as you want it to, or pretty much as long as you want it to. It's not infinite, but it's a long time. And you're going to go ahead and watch the back of the camera as the fireworks are going off in the background. And you get to just watch the fireworks build on the screen until you're happy. Then when you feel like you've got it, you trip the shutter one more time, and now you have a perfectly exposed picture of your kids and amazing fireworks streaks going off in the background. It's really amazing, and it's actually pretty simple to do. So we'll simulate that tonight with my kids out here just in front of their playhouse, and we'll use some sparklers, me and my wife running around the background to kind of create the light that would be a giant firework display on the 4th of July. And then when you guys go out, you can totally do this. All you need is your camera, a flash, and a tripod, and you are good to go. So let's cut to some behind the scenes here, and I'll get back to you guys at the computer when we've got our final image. All right, you guys, I have two quick tips here. So the first one is you want to use your cell phone or another light that you have to focus on your kids in the dark. So I have a little LED light right here, and so the first thing I'm going to do is I would tip it onto them. And you have to move your shutter speed into like bulb or 60 seconds to get focus. Okay. The second tip I have is you need to use a white balance for the flash. So make sure you have it on flash white balance and not on like shade or incandescent or something like that. Even though this is an incandescent light and they're showing up kind of orange on my screen right now, the flash when it fires is going to give them white light. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this down. And so they're getting kind of dim. All right, so first step, guys, hug each other. Okay, right there, and we're going to go back down to, get back down to live composite. They're going to hold still. First one, here we go. There's the first exposure, second exposure. Get ready to smile, guys. 1, 2, 3, smile. And now they can drop their smiles while the rest goes on. You guys stay still, drop your smiles, and Mama, we're ready for you. And so this next part can take as long as you want. Fireworks could be going off for a few minutes or a few seconds, or you could wait. As long as your kids don't move a ton, you won't get a lot of blur in them. And they're doing a great job. So now she's going to come into the frame. You're going to start seeing fireworks being recorded on the frame. And she's going to try some hoops, and she's going to try some spins, and whatever the fireworks wind up doing, then that looks amazing. Mom, go ahead and exit out this camera, this side of camera, exit this way. And so she got a little bit of fireworks over there. And then when you're ready, 38 seconds later, you just press stop. And bada boom, guys, I'm going to show you the play right here. Boom, there's your kids, and it's a kind of fun, amazing composite. Hey guys, I got 3 more things I want to mention just real quick that I didn't say outside. So when you're working with live composite, I mentioned it, but I want to be more specific. You can use shutter speeds from 1/2 second up to 60 seconds, okay? So you've got to reach at least half-second interval to kind of create your base exposure. So remember, if you're shooting a dark scene, like let's say it's just a field at night and there's no light where you're pointing your camera, then you're not going to get any actual exposure in that first frame. But let's say that there are some buildings or something that's out in front of you, then you're going to want to set your exposure for that first frame to be a good exposure for the ambient light with no fireworks. Okay, so that's a little bit important. So let's say you're sitting in a stadium and you have your camera on a tripod, and the exposure to make the stadium look good before the fireworks start is something like 1/2 second at f8 at ISO 200. Then that's the exposure you should use for your live composite. Okay, if you're working in a totally dark conditions, then your settings are a little less important, honestly, because there's no base exposure to really deal with. Your base exposure is just darkness. So if you have any kind of lights and you're kind of monkeying around with the exposure before you start shooting fireworks, the first exposure that your live composite takes is for the ambient exposure. So let's say you're shooting at some woods or whatever, and you're shooting at 2 seconds at f8 ISO 200, and you can barely make out the trees and there's a little bit of ground light or whatever. That's awesome. That'll work. If you shoot at too long of a shutter speed, like let's say you choose 10 seconds at f8 at ISO 200, and now your stadium or your trees or whatever are turning out too bright, then that's going to make your live composite not look so good. So you must use the first exposure of your live composite to be a good exposure for your ambient background light, no fireworks and no flash. Okay, so you can use shutter speeds from 1/2 second to 60 seconds. And I looked it up, the maximum time that you can record a live composite is 3 hours. But typically speaking for fireworks, we're talking about 8, 10, 15, maybe 30 seconds at the top. Okay, so typical exposures. Okay, so when I was shooting outside, I shot at f4 at 1 second. And the reason I shot at f4 is because I was dealing with little tiny sparklers, which are not nearly as bright as big fireworks in a field. So here's an exposure that I would kind of start with if you're going out for the first time to try and shoot fireworks. And this is true regardless of whether you're shooting with a flash and you're trying to get a portrait involved in this, or if you just want to get great fireworks photos in general. ISO 200, start at about f8 or f11, okay, and start with a shutter speed, if you're just doing fireworks, of maybe say 4 to 10 seconds, somewhere in there, and try that first, okay? If the fireworks are getting blown out, if they're turning white and you're not really seeing the color of the firework, then you want to move your aperture down to f11 or f16. Fireworks, it turns out the big fireworks that you see, it shows, put out a ton of light. It's very, very close to almost like as bright as sunlight. So don't be afraid of f16 or f11, that kind of thing. And also if you shoot in RAW, you can then drag the exposure down and all that kind of good stuff. And then, so just to reiterate, if you're shooting fireworks for the first time, or you're out shooting your kids with your flash and doing the whole thing, the big fireworks show, ISO 200, ISO 400, f8, f11, and then 2 to 4 seconds would be great place to start if you're shooting those portraits. Now, you can use off-camera flash, so if you want to use your X Pro O and one of your strobes, you can actually have your significant other kind of lighting them up while you are firing from the camera. I've done that before, or you can do it straight from a camera. All the same rules apply when you're shooting portraits. You could go the extra mile and put an umbrella up or that whole thing, or you can just put it on camera and kind of do it that way. And then, yeah, I think that's it. So those are my 3 kind of tips, guys. Remember, live composite is found on your camera by rolling down past the lowest shutter speed. So here on the EM1 MKII, if I have a shutter speed, let's say I'm shooting pictures, base exposures, let's say 2 second exposures, and I'm shooting at f8, this is kind of where I would start. And I'm trying to see what my background's going to look like, what my base light's going to look like. Then when I go to shoot my live composite, I'll roll it all the way down past bulb, past live time to live composite. Then you hit the menu button, and here I would set it to 2 seconds because that's the exposure that I liked for the background. And then you trip the cutter the first time, and that's doing that base exposure. And then the second time, you're gonna start recording the fireworks and the flash. So that's it, guys. Hope it works. Love to see what you guys come up with. This is a really fun technique. Like I said, it's actually super techy in a lot of ways, but also really easy to do with our Olympus cameras. And it's a great use of live composite. Thanks for watching. Happy 4th of July. I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, don't forget to subscribe, notification bell, all that kind of good stuff. Thanks, guys. Bye.